this person who understands the gospel, applies it by faith to your life, and then applies that faith to the life of your children and raises them inside of that love. That's a totally different thing than I checked this box and I checked this box and I checked this box.
Welcome to another episode of the Carpe Fide podcast, where if the shoe fits, you wear it.
And if the truth hurts, you bear it.
I am Justin Gruber.
And I am Jesse Gruber.
And today we hope you will seize the faith.
Welcome to another episode of the Carpe Fide podcast. How you doing tonight, Jess?
I'm doing really good.
That's great to hear.
And you're going to tell me why.
I'm very excited to hear that. Well, tonight we have a very special guest. Dr. Ben Merkle is the president of New St. Andrews College, as well as a senior fellow of theology. He holds a doctorate in philosophy and Oriental studies and a master's in Jewish studies from Oxford University. You have to say that with some sort of distinguishing tone.
Very
in
distinguished,
England.
yes.
Well executed.
Thank you. He would prefer, though, to go by Ben for the rest of the interview.
We'll see what we can do.
But I feel really awkward saying just Ben, though. But Ben, how are you? Good to see you.
I'm great. Privileged to be here.
That's awesome. In the midst of our Education is Warfare series here, we are very thankful to have someone who is on the front lines of Christian higher education, which is not always something we are running to think about when we're making decisions for our children and with our children post high school age. But it's something that we do need to be considering, so we're very thankful to have Ben or Dr. Merkle, depending on what circle you're in, with us tonight. I did okay. I thought that was pretty good.
Smooth.
Very smooth. Oh, smooth as something that's smooth. I'm going to stop talking.
All right. My head. All right.
Please let me go to, our goal here is to give Ben as much time to talk tonight. So what will happen undoubtedly on this podcast?
You're failing so far.
I know, is that the level of wonderful, coherent conversation will increase dramatically from the usual Carpe Fide podcast. Please enjoy that. Ben, could you please, we're curious, how does one go from just living a life to president of a Christian university, Christian college? So what's your background, the ministry you've walked to that's brought you to this point?
Yeah, well, it's definitely not at all what I had planned for. I still remember my mom, I think somewhere in high school asked me, like, what do you want to do for a career? And I said, anything as long as it doesn't involve a desk or books. You can see.
No, seriously, swing and a miss.
Failed miserably. I definitely did not think I was not interested in academia by any means whatsoever. In my undergraduate, I was very. I believed that if it was real knowledge, that means it was in either a number or a formula. So I did chemistry throughout my undergraduate. I have an education major for my undergraduate degree, but my education major was chemistry. I was going to be a high school chemistry teacher.
Wow.
But the reason why I picked education was somewhere in college, I kind of really came into the conviction I wanted to be a minister, and every pastor I knew was a teacher. So I did an education degree. But somewhere in the middle of all of that, in becoming more serious about my faith, I became more serious about being a person who's disciplined, who studies the word and who learns the word. And what I started to notice were all of the men that I admired, who I really wanted to be like, were men who were serious about learning. And I started to see that there was basically a particular habit of the mind that created the kind of life of faith that I really wanted to emulate. And as I started to follow in those footsteps, I suddenly discovered that this was actually an area that I was good at. I was terrible in chemistry. I hated it, even though that was my degree. But as I moved to a liberal arts degree, I discovered something I was quite good at. But more importantly, what I discovered was, first of all, the liberal arts kind of opened up scripture, the life of faith for me. But then particularly as I moved to teaching in the liberal arts venue, I found that my desire to be a minister, I was actually more fruitful, or I was having a greater impact on the lives that I was speaking into when I was a teacher than I had been just as an evangelist and whatnot. And I realized that education is an extremely important subset of the ministry that we need to lean into. And it became something that, particularly for myself, I was good at, called to, and that, I kind of came alive teaching college freshmen. It was something I was good at. So that pulled me into this space. Me becoming president is, I've joked with my wife that I kind of, for a while, I thought that God was drunk driving with my life, because I think people feel that, like, you think you're about this one thing, and you get all the qualifications to be a high school teacher, and then you end up over here. And so you work really hard to, like, okay, I'm going to be a pastor. I'm going to get really good at that. And then you decide I needed to go and get all my graduate degrees because I was really going to be a college professor. So that's when we went to Oxford. I did a master's in Jewish studies, and then I did my doctorate. Came back to Moscow thinking I would be a teacher, and actually there were no teaching jobs for me. So I went back into the ministry, and I wondered, why did I ever bother to go to Oxford? But then after a few years, there were a few things that happened that just kind of catapulted me into this office. And when it happened, it was really weird how you could look back and see how all of these things that you thought were like just crazy, weird decisions, all of it really came together to prepare me for this job in a way that I would have never, ever seen coming. It was really important that I spend time as a pastor. It was really important that I spend time in Oxford getting the degrees that I got. It was really important. Each of these things that I did really came together to make me ready for this moment. So I'm grateful for it, but I would not say this is a path that you can like pick.
That's interesting. I wonder if that's I've never really asked the president of a liberal arts college or university how they got there. So I wonder if that's a curious path for most. It does seem like, I don't know.
Well,
if
first
like
you go
any kid
here
woke
and
up-
then here, and then you backtrack, then you move here, and then eventually you'll end up right where God wants you.
That is true.
A life of failures, and it ends you with where God wanted you. It's pretty great.
That sounds
Well,
right.
that's the best place to land, really.
I mean,
so.
well, no kid wakes up like on a Saturday morning like, you know what I want to be? I want to be the president of a liberal arts college. Yeah, that's what I want to be. Nobody does that. No kid is.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I still remember in high school taking one of those tests to like tell you what your job ought to be, and I scored as train conductor, and
Perfect.
college president was never on the list of things that you could be, and I wouldn't have ever expected it, but it is in God's perfect timing exactly where I should be.
Although sometimes I think, liberal arts president of a college and pastor. I mean, these things, train conductor seems relatively okay for that. I mean, sometimes you're conducting the train wreck, but I mean, yeah, they still seem to fit.
There's something there. There's something
There
there.
might
They were
be something
on
there.
something.
Absolutely. Well, so in your roundabout way of having, now this is a little off topic, but did you grow up in Moscow? Is that like where you were from originally?
No. I grew up in southern Idaho in Boise.
Boise.
Born and raised in Boise. Went to a private Christian school through 8th grade, but went to public school for high school. So graduated from the public school system, went on to the University of Idaho, general evangelical background. It was when I came to the U of I'm the most boring standard evangelical story of you have an evangelical past, but you hit public school, then you hit college, and then you did a lot of stupid things, and then somewhere in the middle of it, the Holy Spirit got a hold of your conscience, started knocking the snot out of you, and I realized that if I'm going to be a Christian, I've got to live a certain way. And then it was actually in a Campus Crusade Bible study that I had a Bible study leader who was a Calvinist and led it was a 1-year Bible study on the book of Romans. And I hated it. I just, I remember him talking to me about like, what do you think about predestination? I just told him it's the stupidest idea ever. And since it's not anywhere, I don't really need to worry about it. It's just your own little philosophical construct. And he was very patient with me, and he just said, maybe just kind of keep your eye out as you keep reading your Bible and see if you run into it. And, like I know inside of 24 hours, I was reading something. And I was like, it just again and again, and I made that Bible study pretty miserable for him all year long. And then by the end of the Bible study, I was like, fine, you're right. This is what it says. Um, and
That's kind of the way that
he,
goes. Yeah.
yeah, he was actually an elder at Christ Church, which I was never going to go to that church because it was the weird church. And
Oh, man.
but you know, I just kept getting beat up by the word, and finally, like, okay, this is what it is. So that's how I became reformed, kind of showed up at Christ Church.
I'm kind of wondering, have you ever thought about deciding that you don't want to be, you're just not going to be a millionaire? Because maybe then God will steer you towards that. I'm just not, you know what? I don't want to be a billionaire. I have no desire. And then maybe God will be like, yo, oh, you don't want that? Well, here.
The old briar patch.
Yeah. It's like everything you weren't going to do. God said, well, you know what? Maybe you'll try it.
It's like Solomon. He's like, you know, oh, God's offering me anything. Well, I can't say riches, you know. Don't say riches.
I got to think of a smart answer, guys.
It's the most humble thing I can think about. Just wisdom, Lord.
Hey, how dare you? That may have been the most genuine thing Solomon ever did.
I mean, I think God knows. So.
Okay, fair enough.
All right, so we keep we keep throwing out this term, this liberal arts college.
Yeah.
But I don't want people to be confused by the word liberal. So if
fair.
Yeah. That certainly has certain connotations nowadays. So if you could, what is a liberal arts college? Because on my understanding, that's what New St. Andrews is.
Right.
Is that correct? Okay.
Yeah.
And then what would you say the differences are between like a New St. Andrews liberal arts college versus just like a regular state college, I guess U of I where you are, or like a Rowan University where we are?
Sure. Yeah. So liberal arts is like, that's what the classic education, the classic college education has been since really the late medieval era. So when the college degree first came to exist, it's basically in the 13th century, you see colleges start to pop up all over Europe. And the liberal arts education is what that bachelor's degree from the 13th century up through the 19th century and really into the beginning of the 20th century. That's what it was. The word is important. So liberal comes from the Latin word liber, and liber means free. So the liberal arts education was the education that was intended to cultivate the skills of being a free man, particularly a free man as opposed to a peasant or a serf or a slave or something like that. So that means that the liberal arts education was intended to be the education that you give to your sort of leading class, the people that you're selecting to be your cultural leaders. They got the liberal arts education, and what it was is a combination of all of the best of the liberal arts: philosophy, literature, science is in there, math is in there, rhetoric, and then most of all theology. So in the liberal arts, theology was always described as the queen of the sciences. To this day, if you go into the quad outside the Bodleian Library at Oxford, you'll have a door for each of the subjects, grammar, rhetoric, logic. But then when you look to the door for theology, it's like this big, huge thing that takes you into this impressive library, because theology is the queen of all the sciences, because knowing God is really the ultimate end of all of our knowledge.
Wow.
So that's what the liberal arts education was intended to do, was to train your leadership class. And so throughout the late medieval age and through the early, the early modern era, basically you would have your nobility, your people of noble names and whatnot. But then you had your sort of serf class below, but in between you had your middle class, which was the people who got this education, and they were intended to be your cultural leaders. And I think as our world has moved out of, being impoverished, and so we've eliminated this kind of serf class, that liberal arts education has become something that's more for everyone. But it's still, the intention of it has been to inculcate the habits and skills of cultural leadership. And so in the medieval era, you'd get your liberal arts BA, and then you could just go get a job, or you could go on to get a degree in law, theology, or medicine. Those were the 3 graduate degrees that you would get from there. And even to this day, we still, like in our military, we preserve that distinction between, the main difference between enlisted and officer is your officer got a college education. And the idea is that this is somebody who has a certain level of leadership potential, which is supposedly signified by the fact that they got a college degree. It doesn't always quite have that effect, but that's what it was supposed to do. And so these are the people who are supposed to lead the men in the military. So it's still kind of built into our society, though I don't know that it quite delivers the way it used to.
That's a great.
I told you we should have asked this question. It was a great answer.
No, I just like that last point. It's still built into the society, but it doesn't deliver on necessarily those. Well, let's call them lofty promises that you would think it would make. It doesn't necessarily deliver on those things. It's so funny. You would bring the military in. I remember one of my teachers when I was in high school had said that they were in the process of actually earning their MD, medicine,
medical doctor.
Yeah, correct. Did I say that right? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, they're going to be a doctor, doctor.
All right,
or like a real doctor, not like a PhD doctor, like a medical doctor, but
not like Dr. Jill Biden.
PhD doctors are probably some of the most real doctors that are. Anyway, it doesn't matter. They were getting their
Dr. Jill Biden,
medical doctor. Like I said, medical doctor. So as soon as he was going to utilize the government's free money for that, so when he applied, he'd already had his bachelor's, his undergraduate degree. So when he applied, he actually instantly became of a higher rank once he was accepted than the person who had recruited him, and he actually got saluted when he had finished the process of becoming in the Army. So that was kind of weird, but it makes sense. Delivering on it though is key, because if it doesn't deliver, what's the point?
Yeah, I hear now you can get a pretty high spot in the Army by being like I don't know, an African American trans woman.
Yeah,
or even a Caucasian trans man. You could be like a health secretary or something.
She. It's very confusing. Every time it's great.
Feeling shattered.
If we just close our eyes and you listen to him talk, you can know that it is not a woman. Oh my gosh. He just gave an interview. I'm like, this is a dude. I'm not seeing anything. This is obviously anyway, I'm just neither here nor there. Moving forward.
It's even bad pretend.
When we're looking at it getting a degree, there's this idea that first of all, now I wish I had just gotten a liberal arts degree first and then something else. But aside from that,
at New St. Andrews College.
No, at New St. Andrews. Isn't it just really a piece of paper? And if it's just about a piece of paper, then how is attending someplace like New St. Andrews actually different than just obtaining a liberal arts degree from just any Joe Schmo state college?
Well, I think that's it's a really important question, because the problem is that increasingly the college degree is just a piece of paper. It really is. There's a couple of different pieces to this, because so I've argued that the liberal arts education was originally designed to inculcate the skills and habits of cultural leadership. I think that's really what it was supposed to do. That's what it was made to do, and honestly, that's what it does best. A good liberal arts education does that best. But especially over the last 100 years, we have revisioned the college education, and we have changed the college education into a necessary certificate to qualify you to get a certain job. So all of our degrees are named after careers. And so your degree now is not named after an intellectual discipline. It's named after the job that you think you will get. And there's a little, allow me a little rabbit trail here, because I do think that the student loan fiasco is a big piece of this. If you think about it, when you want to go get a loan for something, the way you qualify for a loan is by being able to demonstrate that you can repay it. If I want to buy a house, I show the mortgage company that I could make these payments. If I want to buy a car, I need to show them that I have the salary to make these payments. The student loan has, for the last, I don't know how many decades, been the one kind of debt that the way you qualify for it is by showing that I could not possibly pay for this. You know, if I say I have no way of paying this back, that's the one way they'll say you qualify. All right, this is great, you get it. And what's happened is because of student loan debt, college tuition has really gone way up because they're trying to collect that student loan debt. So so you've got this tuition price, the price tag that has gone way up because they're trying to collect what is available out there through the student loan debt. But you've got this 18-year-old who's coming in and you've got this huge tuition price tag. And the only way, how do you convince him to agree to that price tag? The only way that you can get him to agree to that is to take out an unreal amount of student loan debt. But how do you take an 18-year-old and say, listen, I think a really intelligent and thoughtful way forward for you right now would be to sign up for $80,000 in debt. How do you sell a kid like that, especially when his parents are sitting there in the room with him? Well, the one way you do that is by you set up a piece of paper with all of your degrees that you offer.
Right.
And each degree is named after a job. And each job, what you do is you put the average salary for that job. You're going to be a mechanical engineer. Your starting salary will be $80,000 annually. You're going to be a CPA. And you show the money that the salary that they're going to get because they got that job. The salary that they're going to get because they got that degree. And once you convince them that getting that degree will get them that job, then suddenly this student loan debt actually starts to feel like a smart move. It feels like an investment,
Right.
and less like this splurge. And mom and dad feel like, okay, this is a safe thing that like my son will be a mechanical engineer. He'll be set up for life. The son is looking at the college campus and the gym they're going to get to go to, the football games to go to, the dorm
ratio
they'll live in for
of
the next 4
female
years,
to male.
party scene. Yeah, exactly. You're looking at that, the party scene, all that. You're like, this sounds awesome. And so they're being sold by all of that. But the thing is, it's all a lie, because the idea that you can promise someone a job is with your degree is a lie. What you're promising them is a piece of paper. And even that is kind of a lie, because of those kids who take out that loan, less than 70% of them, it's going to be in the 60% or so, will actually get that degree. So I mean, think about that. Imagine taking out a loan on a house for, say, $500,000, and you're told you have a 62% chance you'll get the house. You got a 100% chance you'll get the debt. I mean, a 62%. So all these kids taking out all this loan, and maybe they'll get that. Maybe they'll graduate. And even then, of that 62% or whatever that graduate, how many of them graduate in the degree they were sold on when they enrolled as freshmen?
Yep.
And then after that, how many of them who get that degree, get that job, or after 4 years in that job, how many of them stay in that job? And what you start to find out is we're now down into like 20% or so of these kids, maybe even less than that, maybe 15%, are actually in that job that they were sold on. And so all that to say, this idea that your degree is promising you a job is garbage. What your college degree ought to promise you, and this is what I think I can do with a clean conscience when I'm looking at an incoming freshman, I can promise them a really good education. And what they're going to do with that education, we'll see what God does with it. I mean, I know, like, as we talked about earlier, I know firsthand that what you think you're going to do and what God has planned for you are almost always completely different things.
From personal experience.
Yeah, exactly. And so the idea that we can like sell people on their future, I think it's twisted for colleges to do it, but I think I get why they do it from a business perspective and a sales perspective. But the other piece about that is one of the things that I increasingly hear from like when I talk to CEOs of companies and whatnot, they will tell me, I don't care what professional skills you have certified them in, because any professional skill that you as a college have trained them for, pretty much almost always I, as a CEO out in the industry, could have done a better job in training them in on-the-job training.
On the job, yep.
Yeah, because your college professor is distant from the actual industry. They don't know what you're doing, and industry is changing so swiftly. The idea that a college is creating a degree program that gets you ready for that job, that college bureaucracy is so out of touch. They are not able to really actually prepare the correct professional, education for that career. So I don't think that we're good at training for jobs. And what will happen is you just are actually training them to pass like a little list of skills that you've created, that when they can demonstrate this, that they know these skills, then they can get this degree. And then you legitimately, as we said at the beginning, you've just turned this into a piece of paper.
Right.
It's just a piece of paper. And the sooner you can do dual enrollment or CLEP or whatever it takes to just get that piece of paper and be done, the better. And I think that that's what colleges are. They're now, I think, experiencing the implications of the way we've crafted education, where a lot of people are trying to figure out how to skip college because they realize it's just a piece of paper. But if you put all of that to death and say, no, actually, what I'm going to give you is a really rigorous education. What I'm going to do is I'm going to teach you how to think, how to read, how to write, how to communicate, how to speak, how to argue, how to work really hard with your mind, how to learn, how to teach yourself. I'm going to teach you those things. When I talk to CEOs now, what they say is, I don't care what your degree is, but if you have those sort of core skills of humanity, that's what I need. And I see this in our graduates. Our graduates don't have any problem getting work. They get snatched up because they're just intelligent, hardworking people. And a standard, intelligent, hardworking person who is going to show up sober and not planning on embezzling from you. It's just a low bar these days. When you have that kind of talent pipeline, it's actually really stands out in the world now. So I would say the liberal arts education has been undermined by this different vision of what a college is. But if you were to return to what the liberal arts education once was, this is the thing that America needs right now. It's the thing that the church needs right now.
I mean, I'm sold, so.
Yeah.
I got 3 kids. So
When are we
great.
enrolling, Justin? I mean, let's go.
No, we're old. We're already dying. It's done. It's done. But for the next generation, this is really where we're aiming here. Yeah. Ben's like, I can't sell you guys on campus. Just don't show up.
He's like, that's creepy.
We'll just drive our minivans. Oh, it's worse. If that's how the degree is different from a regular state college, how does NSA, which by the way is so phenomenal to say that, New St. Andrews, their acronym, your acronym is NSA. It's just fantastic.
I don't think he knew that.
I know he knows that. I just like it. I wanted to denote that
I was in Washington D.C. a while ago, and I actually have a baseball cap with NSA on the front, and I'm wearing my NSA hat around. And I'm getting these weird looks, and then you suddenly realize, actually, this, like in Washington D.C., NSA kind of has a different,
yeah, there's a flavor there.
and also, I think probably people in the NSA don't tend to put it on their
hat. Yeah, no, that's true. Yeah.
A lot of weird looks.
Yeah, spooks are spooks for a reason. How then?
I played for the agency baseball team.
This is our uniform from this past year. Thank goodness there wasn't a Bernie Sanders supporter shooting us. Anyway,
no.
Wow.
That took a turn. Sorry. So sorry.
I'm sorry. How is campus life? So how is student life different at New St. Andrews than, again, your Joe Schmo state college? How does that part? If that's the education, which you're outlining very clearly, what is student life like?
Now, the thought behind this question is that the guy that does our post-production, our audio post-production, goes to New St. Andrews. I just want to know what he's benefiting from being there. That's what I want to know.
He's going to tell if I'm lying. Who is your
Jaeger Winckler is.
Okay, got it. Okay, yeah. I didn't realize this. All right. Well, okay. So um, there's two or three ways. One is just the fact that we are a teeny college. We're a small little college. So even University of Idaho, which is kind of a nothing university, but they're 8 or 10,000 students, and we're under 300 in our undergraduate. So we're a teeny little school, and that obviously sets a certain kind of tone. Another thing about NSA, we really deliberately don't have dorms. We want the students to, I have found that dorm life tends to pull you into this kind of little imaginary world that you don't get out of very easily. And you spend 4 years kind of living inside of this little imaginary city. And if you paid for it with student loans, then you paid for it with imaginary money. And you're in this little imaginary world. And then suddenly we pop people out on the other end and say, we're ready. You're now somehow by this, you have been prepared for adulthood and responsibility, when what we've really done is strip you of all adulthood responsibility and kind of infantilized you for 4 years. So we're saying no dorms. We want you, if you come to NSA, we treat you like you're a stinking adult. You are responsible, pay your bills, find yourself an apartment, you figure out how to cook your meals or go hungry. That's fine. Either is fine. Do your laundry. We treat them like adults. And I do think that the implication of that is that they learn to be adults. And so this kind of failure to launch syndrome that we see a lot of all around, I think that's self-inflicted by how we have trained our college students. I don't see that syndrome in the NSA students at all, because by the time they graduate, they've all had jobs. They've been like figuring out how to do life on their own. They're ready to, I was just looking at like our last graduating class. How many of them were either married or engaged or proposed to their girlfriend 2 days after graduation? Like they're ready to move on. They're ready to actually like own it and do what they're supposed to do. And I think that's a result of us treating them like adults while they're at NSA. The last thing that I think is unique about being at NSA is just the unique phenomena of being in Moscow. Moscow is such a crazy town. It's just unlike anything else, where you have this like really, really robust and serious evangelical presence that's all around. And you're supposed to be a part of this town. If you ask any of our grads, like what's the most important thing about NSA, they'll kind of get embarrassed because they feel like they're supposed to say, oh, it was my philosophy class or whatever, but almost universally in the end, they'll all say it was the community. It was the community that I was in. It was the fact that I went to church on Sunday with, Doug Wilson preaching or Toby Sumter preaching or somebody like that. And I was in a Bible study with these people, and people called me out of my sin. They encouraged me to grow up as an adult and be a mature Christian. It was the community. And so I think that there's something about the fact that we're not this dorm life that we say, go out. We're not, for instance, we don't have a weekly chapel. We have a weekly assembly, but it's disputatio. It's an academic gathering. We don't try to replace worship for the students. We tell them we want them in one of our actual local churches worshiping on Sunday with 85-year-old ladies and 2-year-old boys.
Amen.
All around you. It's really important.
Amen. That's fantastic. Go be a part of a church. Yeah, we're not your church. We're your college, not your church.
Right.
That seems a reasonable thing. I feel like that's the appropriate answer.
That's really good.
Well,
actually,
it does. But I remember when I was in college, I was at University of Idaho, and my campus crusade Thursday night meeting was my church service. I didn't go to church. Because I thought we sing praise music, we hear a little bit about the word. This is church. But what it meant was my conception of spiritual maturity tapped out at like 22 years old. And that's not a healthy,
No.
it's not a healthy thing when, like, particularly when you're thinking about, like, what am I looking for in a future wife? And the 22-year-old couple is like your model of, like, that's as good as it gets right there. Um, your scale of what you're looking for becomes pretty juvenile. But then suddenly when you walk into a church body and you realize, whoa, that's what a marriage is, that kind of changes how I'm thinking about this right now. And I think that we have stunted our growth by not having those years of 18 to 22 be inside of a mature congregation like that.
I really want to launch into a tirade on how we're doing exactly the negative thing that you describe in churches by creating a youth group mentality where we just shove children to lead themselves into some sort of Lord of the Flies situation. And their adult mentor is 23 because he's the cheap guy you can get, from Chicago.
He needs his intern points.
Christian University.
Yeah.
Anyway, but I will not. I'm going to hold back, but that may be a reality for many of you to investigate in your local church.
That's a different podcast. Next time we have Ben on, we'll talk about that.
Yeah, we'll do that. That sounds fair.
So one of the things that we asked Nikki Truzel when we were talking about homeschooling as Christian families is this idea that sometimes when we're being not sold, but when we're being encouraged to go a certain way, like she's really pro homeschooling. Obviously, you're a doctor and president of New St. Andrews, and so we naturally lean towards these things, and we try to steer away from other things. So when a family is saying, okay, well, I've raised my kid in the church, I had them go to youth group, I even put them in Christian private school. What's the big deal about putting my student in, the local college or the community college for their first few years? So my question is, what are the stakes for a Christian family when they're considering state-run higher education for either their child or for themselves?
Yeah. So kind of let me ask the rhetorical question here. If you can reflect back on your own life, the years 18 to 22, were those the insignificant and inconsequential years? Were those the years where, like, nothing formative happened during that time frame?
He picked the one age range where stuff actually happened in my life.
Well, okay, but here's the thing: you're not weird. You are like 98%.
Now wait a second. Look, Dr. Ben, I've known him my whole life. He's a weird dude. Okay, but I get what you're saying. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Great. Sorry, say that again.
I mean, I know what you're saying, but he's definitely a weird dude. He's definitely weird. I've known him.
Okay.
Okay. All right, fair enough.
I got it. Well, no. So what I've noticed is parents tend to think, okay, we have them until they're 18. So the education that we give them until they're 18, that's like the concrete that we'll lay. And we'll lay that concrete foundation. And then once we have finished with that, the concrete will be laid. They'll have their Christian worldview. They have all that. And the next few years are because the foundation of faithfulness has been laid, we can invest the next few years in profitability. So the next few years will be about getting the right degree that will get them work certification so they can go and get certain jobs. And they tend to think that concrete on faith has been laid at 18. Therefore, next few years are all about making them profitable. And I need that right degree in order to make them profitable. When I hear that, I every time I ask a crowd, okay, the years 18 to 22 in your life, were those the years where the concrete had been laid and nothing formative happened with regard to faithfulness or anything like that? And everybody always goes, well, actually, yeah, that was kind of a big deal those years. I think we tell ourselves that the concrete has been laid by 18 because up till the age 18 is when they're under our control, and it makes us feel better to say that when they leave under our parental authority, all the work has happened so that nothing else could change them. But look at the data. I mean, look at the facts. and it's so obvious because I think the Baptist denomination or the Southern Baptist denomination did a survey on apostasy. I've seen multiple surveys like this, and they all figure right in the 70 to 80% of their kids stop attending church within a year of graduating from high school as they go off to college.
Mm-hmm.
There is like all of this damage that's happening. I mean, one of the images I've used before that I think is helpful. Your kids right now would have a better chance if your kids were in the boats that landed on Normandy Beach during the D-Day invasion. They'd have a better chance of surviving that physically than they would spiritually survive the American college system.
We use that. Don't worry. We've
We-
stolen that and
We
and
use it
tell
because
everyone.
we use it because he used it.
Familiar.
Yes, we totally.
Yeah.
It's you, but yes,
Yeah.
it's excellent.
Oh, good. I'm in a footnote. No, so my point is that these years are so critical. And if you think through your own life, either you became a Christian in those college years, or you had a fundamental reckoning in your faith where you suddenly understood, hang on, I can't be like that. I if I'm going to be serious as a Christian, I need to be a different kind of person. That between 18 to 22, it's crazy how often that happened. How about the woman that you married? It's not universal, but on average, most of us met that woman between 18 to 22, and man, there's nothing that aside from salvation, there's nothing that shaped your life more than the marriage that you have as a man or as a woman, and your understanding of what that was about, and your wisdom in how you walk through that process has a lot to say with either how well your life has gone or how badly your life has gone. And so people think that like if I just got that one degree, I'd be so much more financially successful. But I would just go back and say, yeah, but if you didn't have 3 divorces, I think you probably actually would be, but a much lower salary, you probably would be more financially successful. And how do you set yourself up for that kind of success? Well, be faithful. Go to a place where you're being encouraged in faithfulness and your eyes are open and you're being wise. When you make those kinds of decisions, that's 18 to 22. And then I would say also, like most of us don't really know what we're going to do as a career, but those years, 18 to 22, those are when somebody spoke into your life and started kind of telling you, hey, I think you're good at this, and gave you that kind of wisdom and counsel to push you in the right direction. So I would say, yeah, 18 to 22, where you go to college really, really matters for the rest of your life in fundamental ways. And I see NSA alums constantly, I just had a meeting with an NSA grad just a little bit ago. They're, graduated 12 years ago and talking about their life was set on a particular path during their time here in Moscow at NSA. I'm not saying NSA is God's choice for everyone. I know that's not the case. But
You'd have a lot more enrollments.
Yeah, but I do think that if we disregard the college years, if we treat them casually, we do so at our own peril.
That is, I mean, you're talking to 2 guys that got married very young, intentionally. I think we both would say.
Yeah, no, I didn't do it on accident. No.
No, I mean, like, we were like, yeah, no, this is, why are we waiting? This is like,
Oh, yes.
okay, you jerk. but I mean, like, I think the more you shape it, I wonder, and this is like totally not, this is like a follow-up question. Don't we intend, though, as we're trying as the church, let's say the biblical church, I don't know, to give it a brand, but as Christian parents, are we intending that we would actually begin to get it more correctly? Like we would be better suited in the paideia of God to bring our children up so that they have such a foundational. Hopefully I'm not going ahead. I didn't realize if this would actually trail into another question, but that we would actually create a foundational worldview for our children that these liberal arts college, these 18 to 22, those years simply become an extension of everything we've done since birth, because I don't know. I feel like we've just failed so much generationally at treating those ages that we're in the whirlwind, so to speak.
Yeah, no, I think that's true. I mean, a lot of this, we're doing a lot of remedial work,
Right.
to catch up on things that we should have gotten done. But at the same time, I mean, it's funny because the real like sort of deep, dark, nasty secret of classical Christian education, but also higher ed, like places like NSA, most of us are giving the education that we never received ourselves. And so most of us that are leading and teaching and whatnot, we're faking it in this. There's a little bit of an imposter thing that's going on. Like how many homeschool moms that are doing classical education are like up late at night, the night before, and on Wikipedia and all of this, and then showing up the next morning trying to pretend like I understand all this and this is quite natural to me. That's true for most of us. I like I said, I graduated from public school, high school. I went to the University of Idaho for my undergraduate, and I didn't mention it here, but like I was on academic probation at multiple institutions of higher learning throughout the state of Idaho. So, it was not a glamorous time back then. And I managed to get into Oxford. And so it finished well, but it wasn't like that early on. But my point is that we're kind of faking it, but I get to also see in my own kids who are actually raised in this system. So I will say basically it's kind of like in the world of classical education, classical Christian education, I speak with an accent. I wasn't raised here. I wasn't raised here, so you can hear it in my accent. My kids don't have an accent. My kids were raised in this world, and they don't have an accent. And those kids who don't have an accent stepping into a college education like this is really fun to see. And I've had multiple times like our dinner table conversations with my kids, and when they all start going at it, it's just really it's just fun to see the blessings of the education and where it's gotten them, and then also to see this conversation that they're having here is not one they could have had with their high school education. There actually was another level they still needed to get to.
Right.
And giving them this is giving them something spectacular.
Wow.
Amen.
That's really good.
That's
and
great.
We relate to that very well because we messed up the Latin in our own podcast name. And then we have people like Jaeger correcting us. So that's
the reality is we started it prematurely because Jesse does do classical conversations with his family. That's their education.
But I have all very young kids.
So he hasn't gotten to the declensions in the Latin.
Yeah, we haven't gotten there yet.
Yeah, so we messed it up. So
wrong declension, right theology. That's what we like to say.
And honestly, I take full responsibility because being a very logical and rational person, I know what carpe diem means. And seeing fide, it should have been fidem. What's wrong with me? Carpe fidem. What kind of idiot am I? Obviously, it makes sense. I know how to speak Spanish.
All of the words have to end in M.
I know how we conjugate things. I mean, like, so obvious. It's just what an idiot. Anyway, I feel
yeah, but see, I didn't even catch that. So now when you say it, I'm like, oh yeah, I guess so. But I didn't catch it. So
it's because of your accent. See, your accent didn't quite get. Yeah,
honestly, it's almost exclusively Moscow, Idaho people that have corrected us on it.
It is actually,
with the exception of maybe one.
Maybe one, almost exclusively. That's great.
Yeah. People in Moscow.
Those guys.
Yeah.
So I think
I've been corrected by students multiple times. I mean, I've got a little bit of Latin, but my Latin is not nearly as good as the students' Latin. And so yes, I will get that correction frequently.
I'm like,
good.
guys,
then we're in really good company then.
Plus, carpe fide has a nice
It just sounds better. We market. Better
it does
better marketability
better.
there.
Yeah, sure. At some point, we should really figure out what marketing is. All right. Anyway,
I think that
Just
conversation.
whenever somebody makes that correction, look at them and go, "It was ironic." Come on.
that's
And then
it.
after it was like your own fault for not catching some other joke that you would somehow imply in there.
We'll Google it later. We'll get a good one.
Well, I think that prior to the Latin discussion, I think that segues really, really good into a question that I was most interested in. So, like Justin said, my family uses classical conversations. Doug Wilson actually kind of introduced me to the idea of classical education. I was able to meet with some people that run classical conversations here in South Jersey. Learned a lot about that and really have fallen in love. I direct now the Foundations and Essentials program here in my town. And so I'm kind of curious. I want to know if I made the right decision. What type of K through 12 education most benefits a student
On your exclusive track to New St. Andrews, what is?
What students do you find are best prepared for the type of rigor in your liberal arts college?
So there's a question there that I actually put this to the faculty recently. Like, if you had to give advice to kids and or parents raising K-12 kids, what advice would you give to get these kids ready for NSA? And so, give me a few months, because I'm pulling this out of them. I'd like to turn it into like a piece. So
Follow-up interview.
Hopefully I'll have a more definitive answer on that in the next few months. But I would say, so at NSA we get a lot of kids coming out of like ACCS classical Christian schools, but we also get a lot of kids coming out of homeschooling, classical conversations, and some of the online Logos Online and some of those kinds of businesses. I to be honest, I really don't see a clear difference between them. They seem to maybe our application process is filtering in such a way that we're getting the same quality out of both or something. But I don't see a really obvious, oh, these kids are always like this and these kids are always like that. I think they both are pretty great. There are some slight differences. I think homeschoolers, if they're going pure homeschooling where it's just mom and dad, then frequently homeschoolers will be stronger on reading and weaker on math science.
Right.
We'll get a little bit of that. Every now and then you get the kid who there is always like the first couple weeks of NSA where you get a kid who's never had a paper graded by anybody but mom.
Right.
And when an instructor comes and like shreds it, then there's some tears, and it kind of takes a little bit of work to get through that.
Why aren't there hearts on this?
But you get through that stuff pretty quickly, and you work those bugs out pretty quickly. So I honestly don't think I can say this one is superior to that one. On the other hand, with homeschooling, one of the things you can get is when you get an exceptional kid, then they can get a little more free reign to like really lean into their strengths and become really exceptional. And so it kind of just goes both directions. I don't really see it. My main observation is that I tend to see not so much a difference between students who graduate from schools versus students who graduate from homeschooling. What I see is a difference between communities that prioritize homeschooling versus communities that start a school. I do think that communities that start a school tend to come together and kind of level up in a way that communities that favor homeschooling can't. You're staying a little more individuals, small families and whatnot. And in certain places, I think that's a necessity. So when we lived in England, when I was doing my graduate work, we homeschooled our kids. There was no school there that we would have sent our kids to. And I think when you're in that kind of position, you're kind of like, I don't know, you're in this, you're living inside occupied territory. You
literally, we have fought a whole war, and you went back there, man. Like we dumped the tea in the harbor. We signed the document. John Hancock's rolling over in his grave. Like, why are you going back there?
They put U's after their O's for no reason.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. I apologize.
Sorry.
Well, so I do think that there are a lot of situations where it makes sense. You need to homeschool because that's the kind of community you're in. But I do think that when a community together all leans into starting the schools, there's a certain trickle down momentum that comes from that raises up the Christian community in interesting ways. But like I said, I don't see that sorted out in the kinds of incoming freshmen at NSA. Like homeschoolers are best or classical schools are best.
Interesting.
I want to qualify this next question. I just realized, like, we did a 3-part series when I don't know if you saw this, but the Gospel Coalition had Jen Wilkin on to talk about how public school was a good option for Christian parents. And they're called the Good Faith Debates. The Gospel Coalition does them. And if you haven't seen them, it's because you're far too intellectual than to, just, it's
because he can divine good faith from bad faith.
Right. You don't want to get down in the mud with the Gospel Coalition. We did a 3-part series, kind of just hopefully one of our friends that we destroyed him. I'm like, I don't think that's quite accurate, but we really dissected her answers. It was really quite. I'm just saying we have a certain view of what state-sponsored education is,
especially in New Jersey, which is just California East.
Yes, it's California East. You shrink it down, you flip it, and New Jersey and California are identical. It's the same thing.
Okay.
But in saying all this, what I don't want to do is not give you the opportunity to answer this question. Is there a way that a person graduates from a state-sponsored education, and are they able to matriculate into New St. Andrews? Is there a barrier, or is there a difficulty, or is there a way that you bridge any gaps necessarily that may come from an education deficit?
Yeah. No, I mean, we'll get kids from the public school system almost every year. It's definitely a significant minority. It's a really significant minority. But God made people in such a way that you put somebody in a wasteland, and there's something inside of them, the image of God inside of them, that makes them crave growth. And I want to climb up out of this. I want to get somewhere. And so there's always kids that are in that situation, in that system, that they show up at a place like this and they're like, yeah, this is what I was needing. This is what I was hoping for. I wouldn't say that the fact that somebody comes from a public school is a impossible barrier to get over, but I would say the public school system is an absolute travesty, nightmare, mess. I mean, it really is a complete. Like one of the things I've noticed is, do you notice how everybody in high school, like, they're 17 years old and they've already knocked out a year of college through dual enrollment and all of this stuff. And I'll get kids who will come to me and they're like, I'm 17, but if I come to your school, I need to come in as a junior because I've already finished my freshman and sophomore year of college. And I'm like, no, you've got a piece of paper that says that, but you don't have the actual education. If I put you into one of my junior classes, you would be destroyed by that academic experience because you don't have the education that gets you there. But what's happened is our K-12 education has been dumbed down so much that you're graduating now as a high school student with the education of a sophomore in high school at best. And they're graduating, the average student is graduating with a sophomore level education. And so colleges have had to do all this remedial training. So now the freshman and sophomore year in college is mostly remedial education. It's whatever you missed your junior and senior year of high school. And that's why so many kids can jump straight into their junior year of college, is because freshman and sophomore year are essentially remedial. And that's throughout our public school system. And that's not even touching all of the moral problems of what's going on in those schools. But the level of education is so degraded that it's just a travesty.
Which is why you need a master's or a doctorate to do anything anymore. Like, you need the next 2 to 8 to 4 years of education to actually do anything. Like, this is ridiculous. This is bigotry of low expectations.
People have masters. Yeah, it's a joke.
Oh.
We need to have another podcast with him on, so we can talk for forever. Alrighty, so kind of going. I mean, I feel like we touched on this earlier.
Look, if you want to skip a question,
I mean, I don't really want to because I feel like it might. We can go deeper into it. I think.
Oh, I know. Ben can go deeper into this particular topic.
He is a doctor.
He is a doctor. Save us, doctor.
So
Bring your back.
So kind of we did touch on it earlier, but maybe we can dive a little bit deeper. So we talked a little bit about this. So we all know that NSA or really any other university won't save our child, right? So I think as parents we can go into protect mode. So we homeschool, so we Christian school, so we shelter and protect, which is part of our job for sure. But we can't let these things replace church community and
Right.
discipleship and all of these things. So university won't save our child. So how do we break the chain, this generational chain of handing off our children to others, like in the university, for instance, for gospel maturity as Christian parents? So how do we break that chain of handing off our kids, our students, for gospel maturity as Christian parents? And how does NSA try to foster that mentality on a practical level? I think earlier you mentioned that you encourage church attendance and stuff like that. So how do we break that chain?
And you also admitted that, New St. Andrews isn't like God's gift of college for everybody. So, I mean, you've answered both of these questions, but this is more of like a drill down.
Yeah.
Does any of that make sense,
So-
by the way? That makes sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, I mean, when you say break that chain, that chain, can you define exactly what you mean by that chain?
Sure, kind of breaking down the mentality of, okay, so I'm going to send them to New St. Andrews and they'll be fine there. They'll be protected there.
Kind
I
of
won't
like
have to worry about them.
I send my kid to youth group so that they're saved now. That kind of chain. Like
Right.
we use these things, we hand off responsibility because we signed a check, more or less, is kind of how we treat it. Is that right?
Yes.
Oh.
Right. Yeah. No, I think so. My advice is don't do that.
I knew that would be your advice.
No, I get what you mean. And it is, you see this, I see this all the time with I'm blessed to have Doug Wilson as a father-in-law, and getting to watch Doug as a pastor, as an elder.
How did
and
I
then
not
as a
make that
father to his
connection?
family.
I am blown away right
had-
now. I didn't know that.
You
That's
didn't know
amazing.
that?
It's okay, when I was interested in my wife, and then I had to go and sit across the desk from Doug Wilson and say, I like your daughter.
Oh, Lord in heaven. Thank you.
Meanwhile, the couch next to him is burning. And
That's the answer. Anyhow, so I've had the experience of watching what his actual parenting is like, and then I see all of the ministry that comes out of his work, the preaching and particularly the books, all of the books on marriage, on parenting, and all these things. And then what I'll see is I'll see people who read the book and they will grab the book in some ham-handed way, and they will say, listen, what I got from your ministry was, if I put my kids in a classical Christian school, if I'm reformed, if I sang psalms, and if I used the courtship model, if I did all of those things, I was promised that my kids would turn out as Christians.
Oh, man.
And then I look at them and I think, yeah, but you were nowhere near the father that he was. You were actually kind of a jerk. You were, there's all of these things where it's like, sure, you grabbed the external methods, the externals of the methodology, but you didn't understand the actual heart of it, which was this person who understands the gospel, applies it by faith to your life, and then applies that faith to the life of your children and raises them inside of that love. That's a totally different thing than I checked this box and I checked this box and I checked this box. I remember one of the things that Doug said once, I think it was just just really mind-blowing for me, because somebody was talking about, they were comparing like two families where one followed methodologically every single thing they should have done right and yet lost all of their kids, and then somebody else who made a ham-handed decision after ham-handed decision, and yet their kids all love God and are faithful children, faithful kids. And somebody's like, why is this? And Doug said, well, love trumps dumb. Love trumps dumb.
Thank the Lord.
When
Praise the
you
Lord.
Well, and I think it's true. I will see somebody who, okay, in terms of curriculum, I would have made a different decision, or in terms of, you used the Belgic Confession, I would have used the Westminster. So there are trivialities of distinctions like that people will get all worked up over, and then they'll miss the fact that, like, yeah, but you were a total jerk to your kid 90% of the time, and you thought that God blessed that because you taught them Latin. Like, what a weird. And so I think the thing is understanding that all of these things are about, it's helping you to see something. But if you don't see the thing itself, which is the love of God, his promises to us, and if you don't throw yourself at that, if you just are clinging at the scaffolding that was about kind of helping you to get there, then yeah, you are going to miss it all, and you're going to wonder why, because I did everything right technically. But it just goes back to Jesus confronting the Pharisees, where it's like, yeah, you tithed out of them the mint and the cumin, but you missed the greater things, which is love the Lord your God, love your neighbor as yourself. Love trumps dumb.
That's fantastic. And I am thankful that is actually a very true statement in my own life.
It's comforting, but also in one way it's kind of convicting.
Oh yeah.
Because what I've found is, like, because I want to be able to say, oh, well, I can't be held accountable for that because I didn't know about those things. But it's like, I did always know what love looked like. I always, like, obedience, real, true obedience is always just like right in front of me. And I know what love looks like, and I could at least do that.
Yeah, I did want to clarify one point. Anybody that was in the negative example there was saying that they were reformed and also living that way would have been a liar, because reformed means to be doing what God's word says. So, like, you're a big fat liar. You're oh no, I'm reformed. You say you're reformed, but you have no idea what the Bible actually is calling you to do, nor are you doing it.
I thought he was going to say the difference between the two families was infant baptism, but I didn't. That didn't go the way I thought.
I was careful.
You're very careful.
You did a good job. Ironically, we're both dunkers, but now all of my kids are dunked, so I can say, like, hey, my whole baptism is baptized, and then Jesse's only 2 of his kids are baptized. I don't want to stir the pot here.
They're so tiny.
They're so tiny. The one would be drowned, but this is neither nor there. We do full immersion. We are.
I don't know. Those
babies.
Those Eastern Orthodoxes, they get them pretty low in that water.
Stop it. We have questions. I'm going. This was really one of my favorite questions, but I don't feel like I don't want to take up too much of your time here. We just want to say here, we love your ads. Your New St. Andrews College ads are phenomenal, and whoever is in charge of putting together the ads, they need a gold star on their chart. Because we love them.
They're so good. My mom sends them to me whenever one comes out. She's like, "Did you see this yet?"
Oh yeah, and the great part is you space them out so far that they're like a little treat. Like you don't, how like movies, like a movie used to be like you get the original and then 4 years later you get the sequel and you were really like, oh wow, this is great. Now everything like the Babylon Bee, it's like funny every day. But like when you guys do it, it's like, oh wow, it's been like 8 months to a year since I've seen an ad this good.
Well, I mean, I would kind of liken it to, sitting in the armchair, it's raining outside, and you look at the world around you, and you've got men pretending to be women in high political office. You've got people dyeing their hair and calling themselves cats and all of these sorts of things. And you're like, why go on living? And then a new St. Andrews ad drops, and you're like, oh, we can take this on.
This is a shameless plug to look at the show notes. There will be a link to their most recent New St. Andrews ad, and it's phenomenal. And you will love it. And then you'll be like, oh, yes, my kids, too, will need to go to New St. Andrews.
Anyway, what's the question here?
I'm moving past that. I'm moving on to the next question that is far more important.
Oh, you're not going to ask it? Okay.
No, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that.
Okay, we're just moving right along.
We all only have so much time. What are some must-read books or resources for parents to help them make the best educational decisions for their families? In your opinion, this is something we also asked Nikki Truesdell.
Yeah, I'm not looking for poll results from the faculty. As just gut
in your
decision.
opinion, these are great resources.
So, I mean, the book that started it all was Recovering the Lost Tools of Learning by Doug Wilson. So I think that he wrote that in 1990, I'm pretty sure.
That sounds right.
And that's the that's the book that launched the movement. So that's a really important one to look at. Another one, oh man, I knew you guys were going to ask this and I forgot to actually go and look it up. There's a book that was just in the last year came out by David Goodwin, who is the head of the Association of Classical Christian Schools, ACCS, David Goodwin, and Pete Hegseth from Fox News. If you look on Amazon, because I know this book was a bestseller within the last year, David Goodwin and Pete Hegseth. I don't know if you're Googling right now.
Battle for the American Mind? No, that's Pete Hegseth.
There we go. Battle for the American Mind.
I did it right.
That's one of the most sort of up-to-date books on what's going on in the education movement. They really, Pete Hegseth was a Fox News guy who I'm not sure how he ended up with his kids in a classical Christian school and then kind of went, whoa, hang on, what's going on? And then really realized this is something really distinct and different. And then struck up a friendship with David Goodwin, who walked him through how American education got to where it is and why classical Christian education is doing something different. And Hegseth got very captivated by that idea, and it ended up in a multi-episode series on Fox News, and then this book that became a bestseller. So I really recommend that as a text that you ought to be familiarizing yourself with.
Excellent. That's so great. I love it when we get unique answers. Cause
I'm going to buy it right now. Well, right after our interview.
Okay. Well, control yourself with your materialism. Just 1 second. Just give it a second. If you were to recommend something for a high school student, freshman to senior, so that age range of 14 to 18, and they're getting ready to move, they're considering strongly education. And they want to understand more about it. What would be something for them? Maybe it sparks the learning, or would increase that desire to excel in I feel like saying liberal arts here, because now that I know that it means to be
Reading.
liberated.
So I would say, I remember, I'll go back to the beginning of our conversation. I was describing that becoming reformed in over the course of the year in that Bible study, working through Romans. The next year, we instead of doing a book, excuse me, instead of doing a book of the Bible, we grabbed Disciplines of a Godly Man by Kent Hughes. And it was just walking through the basic Christian disciplines, prayer, reading your Bible. It's just the basics, which was like, at the time, it's so weird now that was so mind blowing. I can't believe I could be a college student and be like, whoa, I'm supposed to read my Bible. But at the time it was incredible. But one of the things that really was amazing was at the end of that book, he surveyed 20 or 30 of the top evangelical minds of the time. And there was like R.C. Sproul was one of the guys. And I remember the number of other people, but he just asked them, what are the most influential books in your lives? And what was amazing to me was looking at this list and how many of them gave the same answers. Calvin's Institutes was really high on the list, but also the works of Dostoevsky were really way up there. And it amazed me. I remember at this time, this is when I'm like a chemistry major, starting to be serious about the Christian faith. And what it opened my eyes to was this idea that like to be a Christian is to be somebody who's reading and studying and enjoying literature. And so I really, because of that, started kind of throwing myself at, okay, I need to be somebody, if I want to be serious as a Christian, I need to read. And Dostoevsky was great, and Calvin's Institutes was great. But I think the things that really helped me to like the life of the mind to catch on fire would be definitely the works of Lewis. I think any Christian ought to be immersing themselves in the works of Lewis, and a high school kid, it's right at that level for you. He does a great job of writing the level of a high school student. You should be reading, obviously you should have already done your Narnia. I think that,
I mean, you can start that anytime. If you haven't started it yet, please, now's a good time. But I mean, also, move past it, but as well. Yeah.
What? Oh, sorry, say that again.
Like Narnia. Narnia is good. I don't want to discourage you. If you haven't started it yet, please start it.
But then you move past. Yeah, absolutely.
Correct. Yeah, you got to move past
that hideous strength. Like if you've not read That Hideous Strength, that is the most. That one's worth, honestly, to me. That's something I read almost once a year with my wife. And if you want to understand the world that we live in right now, read That Hideous Strength. Along with The Abolition of Man. They were meant to be read together. That tells you what is going on in the world right now and why it is happening the way it is happening. So absolutely that. Your Mere Christianity, all of that. Great Divorce. You should be devouring that. But also Francis Schaeffer, to me, the first Francis Schaeffer I read was Escape from Reason, which was this teeny little book that I remember when I was trying to read it, I would read a page and then I would have to go back to the beginning and read it again, and then go back to the beginning and read it again. It was so hard for me to understand the argument that he was making, but I knew that it was important. And I finally got that book, I understood it. And it was it really turned my mind to being able to be somebody who's a thinker. It's funny to me that I did my doctorate at Oxford, but when I started, it really was hard for me to read works like that. But working through Francis Schaeffer was hugely helpful. And I would definitely, high school students, devour your Francis Schaeffer. And then, there's countless things coming after that. There's a lot of great work that's just online now that I think is worth. Doug's blog is a fantastic thing to be at every day, but there's so many other things that you ought to be devouring.
Yes, and amen. I would encourage that. I will often do the briefing followed by blog and Mablog. I will kind of get two different sides of the coin. So I'll do a little Albert Mohler, and then I'll do Doug Wilson, and then I at least have a good barometer of where I should be going between the two. Usually I just trail off into Doug, but neither do I. That's neither here nor there. I do love that you mentioned how they referenced Dostoevsky, because you're looking at a writer who dabbled in both analysis and also fiction, and kind of brought those worlds together, because I do feel like so many of these answers ignore the fact that storytelling is so integral to understanding the world around us, that all stories are based on God's story, and the best stories actually tell the truth. And I've just been gleaning that through my life, as I used to just say, well, if I'm not reading something that's not nonfiction, like if it's fiction, why am I reading it? And then I dove back into fiction, and I said, the reason I'm reading fiction is because the best stories tell God's story in a different way. They're the best ones. They're the ones we love. So I love that you mentioned that. And the footnotes that you can find in most of these books will give you enough reading for the next 30 years. So,
what the heck do you know about Dostoevsky? What? Where the heck did that come from?
How do you know what's on my Kindle right now, you jerk? How dare you?
I guess I don't, but I'm flabbergasted.
I'm a little shocked right now.
Well, you know what? I knew that Ben was Doug Wilson's son-in-law, so there's that.
Things you know that I don't know.
Oh man! Oh, now he's choking. I've killed him accidentally. through sheer wit.
We're on just audio right now, not video,
Yeah, that's
Yes.
correct.
right? So I can tell people that you're actually giving him the Heimlich to help
Oh,
him.
yes. I am a nurse, so that would be an obligation that I have.
Thank you for saving me, Dr. Jesse.
No,
Dr.
my-
Fauci.
Why'd you pull out Dr. Fauci's voice?
Because Dr. Fauci saved me.
He also does sound like he's constantly choking, so that's fine.
Senator Paul, you don't know what you're talking about.
Choking on his lies.
Regardless.
All right, Justin, you got this last question. Look, we are almost done.
This is very important. What budget does NSA have for their DEI faculty training and curriculum? That's diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Yes. All of us are diversity, equity. We're all DEI, 100%. Nobody is not.
Nobody is not DEI.
I love the compliance comrade.
Your
It's
an-
such a
your
it-
answer
it-
will be noted in the book.
I mean, it's interesting. Like, the thing is, it's actually an interesting kind of experiment you can go through, because most public universities, you can actually go online and pull their annual budget, so you can see what they're spending on everything. And man, what you could delete so many positions so quickly and improve the education. You wouldn't just not harm the education, you actually improve the education. The amount of weird offices that have to be funded in order to pick whatever, diversity box or whatever it is to keep the government agencies happy, it's really, really absurd. um, you know we're really able to run at a much more affordable level just by not having to bow to all of those weird little offices.
Does New St. Andrews take any state funding or government
Take
funding?
what was it?
Take any state or government funding?
No. So no, no Pell Grants, no federally subsidized student loans. Throughout all of COVID, we didn't take any of the PPP money or any of those. So no federal money, and there's a variety of reasons for that. One is the fact that the big one is that we don't want the constraints that come with the federal money. We don't want to have to tell the girls that they now have to shower with the guys because we took that federal money. So that's kind of a big one. We don't want to be under any of those constraints. I think it's Rob Borton's from Classical Conversation that says, with the shekels come the shackles, and we don't want the shackles. So that's one reason. Another is just you kind of just that general principle of, like, I just don't feel like that's what taxes are for. I don't feel like my state or my nation owes us this money. And I think that saying no to that is important, because that's just not what taxes are for. And then the other thing that I think is really important is that by saying no to federal money, it actually keeps our tuition much truer to the price signals of the free market. This tuition is truly what people are willing to pay. And if I jack it too much, then I will know, because people will stop coming. And I think that when you have the out of Pell Grants and federally subsidized student loan, you can jack the tuition and people can still cover it, because they're using what it feels like to them as imaginary money.
Yeah, it's just printed at the Federal Reserve and shipped off.
That's right. And I think it's just not healthy for us as a financial institution. So we are really alive in the really middle of the game of the actual price signal of the free market. If we do this wrong, we go down. And I think that that's a responsibility that is healthy and really good to own.
Yeah, that's great. I was I used to think, like, you make the argument, like, well, like you were saying earlier, you can get a grant or you can get a loan for your education, but the reality is it's not attached to a value, right? So yes, you can get $60,000 towards your education as a mechanical engineer, and you can get $60,000 towards your underwater basket weaving degree. Like, those two things are not the same. But then I realized that, you can be a white liberal woman, from New York and get your degree in diversity training and suddenly make, 6 figures. So it's actually ironic that stupid degrees now can get you a lot of money at college campuses.
Yeah, I mean, this interview changed my life. I've discovered that I want to be what do they call those? An advisor, like a
Consultant?
No, like what they have them. They're like not student advisors.
You want to be in the
student
diversity,
advisors.
equity, and inclusion.
Career counselor or something like that.
Yeah. That tells the kids, you can be whatever. It's like Disney, like you can be whatever you want. What do you want to be? Pick from the menu, the career menu. That sounds like a great gig. I mean, very little, responsibility.
You hand them 2 menus: your gender and also your career. Dr. Ben Merkle, this has been absolutely fantastic. And when you finish gathering that data from the faculty, we would be absolutely fascinated in it. So when you analyze it and write your diatribe on what they have said has been most beneficial as far as educating a student up towards NSA, towards that, we would love to hear that. So that would be fantastic.
Absolutely. I'll remind them we need to get this thing done. It's the summer months right now, so everybody's gone, but as soon as they get back, that'll be at the front of the list.
Oh, please do not. I mean, rush it on your account if that's what you want. You are the man in charge. But
Guys, I was on this
I do,
podcast. These
actually.
guys from
I
South
think
Jersey want this.
we are no one. But we are thankful for what you guys. Now that I know that you are son-in-law to Doug Wilson, I didn't even know that, but now I know. Speaking of, quick plug. That's one of the things I was thinking about fiction. Like Doug Wilson's fiction makes you engage, and I love it. I absolutely love Doug Wilson's fiction. I may be one of the weird people that loves it more than even some of his nonfiction, but I love the fiction. Sorry, I'm neither here nor there.
I'm glad you stopped yourself.
I give out his fictional books to young men. I'm like, read this.
You didn't give me any of his books.
Not you. You're a brother. You're not someone. I'm trying to influence you. Anyway, we have really enjoyed our time so much with you, Dr. Ben Merkle. I hope it's been also enjoyable for you. If there's ever anything we can do, let us know. But I hope, dear Christian, that this has been something for you that's been very encouraging, and we hope that you choose this day to
Seize the faith.